Welcome everyone, welcome to another edition of For the Players. This is another deck tech I'm going to be bringing you. This is for the Dragon Ball Z CCG. I'm going to be looking at Ginyu Blue and why it is so popular and why it is so goddamn good and why it's tearing up the meta right now. Let's dive in and take a look. So once again we start with the mastery. Blue style mastery. So right off the bat our opponents have to have 6 anger to actually advance the personality level. This is so big and is absolutely crippling against some decks. We are also going to be having to discard, we have the option to, once per combat, to discard a physical combat card to stop an energy combat or an energy combat card to stop a physical attack. This is also rather huge because it gives us a large versatility. We can see right now the blue style, all it wants to do is control and set up and wait and wait and wait and wait until it can finally snatch victory. So this is going to be a very, very controlling deck. Let's dig a little deeper. On to Ginyu's main personalities. Level 1. Level 1 lets us instantly put an ally into play and they can make an action as soon as they come into play regardless of Ginyu's power level. This is super useful for if we're on the offense we can bring out Raccoon or we can bring out Jace. Or if we need a bit of more defense, we can bring out Gildo. Level 2 lets us search the discard pile for an ally. Now we're assuming decks are running ally hate or we've taken some life cards of damage and one of our allies is in the graveyard already. So it shouldn't be too hard to utilise this power. Ultimately though, 1 I think is actually a little better. 3 is where we really want to be though. 3 is where it really starts getting good. None of our allies can be discarded. What? None of our allies can be discarded and they may make actions regardless of Ginyu's power level. What? Seriously? Are you crazy? Anyway, who cares about the extra life cards that this guy deals with this damage? Our allies can't be discarded. 4 is just outright mean. Same deal, can't be discarded, but added life cards based on how many allies we have in play. Our allies will own you. This deck is nuts already. Time for the staples. One more time as a Warriors tool. We've been through this card is amazing, we love it. We're going to be throwing in 3 stare downs to stop them from playing stuff they like. We'll also be throwing in 3 villainous energy spheres to stop them playing even more stuff that they like. Pretty simple so far. We're going to be throwing in 3 overpowering attack as well. Overpowering attack lets us put allies back into play. Well, Ginyu's based off of allies. I think it's an auto include as well. We're going to be running with 1 of each of the villainous allies as well. We're going to be running 1 Jace, Berta, Raccoon, Gildo, and 1 Nappa. Each of these is unique in that it offers a situational toolbox option should we ever need it. And with the amount of cards that so far are putting allies into play, I think it's going to be extremely useful having every single one of them in play. Gildo, he stops attacks. Very relevant in a blue deck. Raccoon gives us card advantage and keeps Ginyu's power level low enough to have his other allies take over, especially in his first and second stages. Jace lets us potentially deal some critical damage, winning back Dragon Balls, raising or lowering anger. And lastly, Berta as a Ginyu Force ally. While it's nice to have some increased stages and damage, it's not overly relevant for this deck, but he is relevant in order to raise our ally count in terms of Ginyu for our level 3 and our level 4 powers. Then we'll be starting to deal some critical damage. Berta is not one I think you should be getting out straight away. And last but not least, we're running 1 more Nappa. Even though we are running a couple of non-combats ourselves, we really don't want the opposing decks to get completely out of control. So being able to call up on Nappa if ever needed to is extremely useful as well, because we don't want them having any shenanigans and playing stuff they like. This is a blue deck for Christ's sake. Onto name cards, we're going to be throwing in 3 of Captain Ginyu's Body Switch. Getting a 6 anger and advancing those personality levels is absolutely critical in this deck. Even though we can raise our anger by playing attacks, by stopping attacks, I don't think it's enough. We need that anger raised, we need that level up. Let's throw them in. Dragon Balls, we're going to be throwing in 3 Dragon Balls into this deck. Namek Dragon Ball 2. Basically, that's going to keep opposing Ginyu's, Gohans, and Piccolos at bay by lowering their personality levels. We're going to be throwing in Namek Dragon Ball 4 because it lets us destroy the opponent's table nasties. And Namek Dragon Ball 7. which keeps our top deck mode in good health, getting back Precious Allies or Time is a Warrior's Tool. Our last two non-style cards we'll be throwing in is another two Visiting the Past. Once again, we've been through this, it is amazing, play it every time. Finally getting to the blue style cards that are in this deck, we're going to be running one blue Terror, which lets us draw anything out of our deck in an hour of need. It was a blue staple in decks of old, and it's a staple now. We're going to be throwing in one more blue Farewell. It's very, very similar to having a Time as a Warrior's Tool in play. Once again, awesome. Not much else needed to say about it. One of our last toolkit pieces for allies is 3 Lunar Ray. We're going to be throwing them in as well, because it's very important to Ginyu as it recovers us some allies should we need them. This brings our deck count to 28. We have 32 slots left, 3 blue Head Knock. It keeps anger decks in check. Having anger lowering as a secondary is always important. 3 blue Betrayal lets us fight off other Ginyu's allies and remove other Chi-Chis and Tians from hero decks. We're going to be throwing in 3 blue Draining Blast. This helps us lower stages so we can activate our allies more easily. 3 blue Round Throw and 3 blue Arm Blast. Both of these attacks can be used as a throwaway defense in case our Mastery Power has already been used. Or alternatively, we can use it on the offense if we hit 3 or 4 Ginyu. Notice the theme here, everything has versatility. These next 4 I think are very integral to any sort of blue deck that anyone's going to be running. Blue Energy Overload, a 3 of, 3 blue Neck Beam, 3 blue Torpedo, and 3 blue Guard. These all have if discarded effects. This is very important for our blue style mastery, because at least some of the time we're going to be discarding cards so we can stop attacks. If these are discarded, we can start rejuvenating and do all sorts of shenanigans with them. Very, very important, at least in this deck, in my opinion. This also lets us fight black decks on an even ground, or have something that they don't want to discard if they pull out a confrontation or a stare down on us. Our last precious 1 slot, we're going to be throwing in a blue reverse as a singleton. We only expect to use this when they have the upper hand and they perform an attack that has a lot of damage, so we can reverse it upon them. Not overly important, so a one-off. Well, as you guys can see, this deck is extremely controlling. You can be able to block a lot of things, say no whenever you want to, throw some allies in play, finally get to endgame in 3 or 4, and absolutely obliterate your opponent. This deck has been taking this entire season by storm, and it's absolutely no surprise why. This is a very popular deck for a lot of different reasons. Now, this was just my setup on the deck and my take on the deck, but feel free to comment below. Feel free to tell me what you would have taken out. Feel free to tell me what you would have left in. Feel free to change the entire deck if you want. I'm open to suggestions. If you want to see more deck techs, tell me below as well what you guys want to hear. Until now, this was for the players.